All right. Obviously, we traded back for Jackson. Fired up to get him. We went through an extensive quarterback process. It started as far back as last May in terms of evaluating the quarterbacks, and Dave's and I have been through this quite a few times. And at the end of the day, we're fired up to have Jaxson Dart, as part of the organization, and look forward to working with him.
What stood out about him to you and to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of qualities you look for in a good quarterback. He's tough, makes good decisions with the football, pushes the ball down the field, has athletic ability, played in a really tough conference, started there at USC as a young guy, but, did a really good job throughout this process of our meetings, board work, workouts, and the tape that we like. So look forward to working with him. I'm glad he's here, and we'll get started as soon as we can.
You talked about how early this process started, but you guys are obviously working on quarterbacks, right up through last week of getting exposure to him. Curious, when did Jaxson kind of crystallize as the guy that, if he was there in this range that you guys all wanted?
We were still meeting on Monday of this week. So again, just the whole process. Once you finally have all the information, and it took us a little bit longer to get all the information because of the scheduling and the calendar this year. So once we had all the information, we circled back up in a meeting and we went through it. And even on the plane ride back from our last private workout, we were meeting with the offensive staff, already going through everything. And so it started there, and then we circled back up again on Monday, and that's where we shut the door and we went through everything and started to set how we had the quarterbacks.
Joe, at what point did you start looking to move back up and to make this, and tell us how that kind of came about and how you decided?
Yeah, it was early to mid 20s. I'm trying to remember maybe in the 22, 23 range. We started to look to move up, and a lot of teams just decided to stay and pick. So again, you try to do deals, you try to move up, and if teams want to stay and pick, there's not much you can do there. So we kept chipping away, and a lot of good relationships with general managers around the league. So easy conversations. The teams that weren't gonna move back, were up front and pretty straightforward right off the bat. So that allowed us to get ahead of the next team and start working through potential trades. Yeah, they picked. Yeah, we didn't start until so wherever they were 21, I believe. So yeah, we started after Pittsburgh. So we again we went through all these scenarios before the day started. What we were going to do at 3, and then at what point we thought it would make sense where it was important for us to hold on to pick 65. I'm glad we were able to hold on to that. I think the pick in the 4th round there at the top is a good pick too. So, try to keep a couple of those picks. So we gave up 99, which was the comp pick, and we were able to keep, 65. So still gives us some ammo to draft some more players tomorrow.
When you bypass a quarterback up high and then you say we really want to get one, there's a lot of moving parts that go into this, right? You have to be confident that these quarterbacks are going to drop and that you can get up. What was your confidence level after you take Carter? Okay, now we got to see what happens. That these guys can just come off the board and they're gone.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. There's 31 other teams, and again, sometimes we assume everybody sees things the way we do. So, and that's not always the case. So again, you take the information you have, you try to gather as much as you can throughout the day, and you sometimes you get a feel for what teams are doing, and sometimes you have no idea. So. Hats off to my staff. They do a great job of making these calls around the league, and the pro scouting staff puts together, needs. So, we have kind of top priorities that the teams need. So you go off of that. Hey, do we need to move up here? Nah, not really. There's, they're probably going to go this position or whatever it may be. So, very professional in the room, very detailed. It was a collaborative effort, amongst the group to be able to execute the way we did.
Joe, did you feel the pressure or an urgency knowing that there were other teams that had yet to pick a quarterback, but the feeling in the league was that they were looking for quarterbacks, and who might be trying to come up ahead of you guys? What was that process like, and how much did you research it and try to feel through it?
And you do all of those things, and you're not in their building, so you don't really know. So the best of our ability, we try to project, what teams may or may not do. So yeah, there were a few we were a little worried they may go quarterback, or you're thinking somebody behind us could easily come up and take somebody. But we practiced some restraint there at a certain part in the 20s, and again, it paid off, and we were able to get Jaxson for what we did.
Joe, you've actually put years of work into finding this quarterback. You talked a lot about your process in doing that. How gratified are you, to finally, pull the trigger on a quarterback, and really what was it, finally that put Jaxson over the top to make him the guy?
Yeah, it's been exhausting, to be honest with you. I mean, we've been, whether it's, here all week and then you go on the road in the fall, or, all the way up to Easter weekend, you're still on the road. So credit to the coaches, my staff, the film they watched, the area scouts putting us in the correct direction on the quarterbacks to go see. So, yeah, it's love the staff, love the coaching staff, the collaboration, the way we all work together. It's a very detailed process, and we couldn't do it without the coaches. And because I don't know our offense inside and out like they do, or what they're going to ask these kids to do. So they do a great job. The coaching staff's ability to, again, Easter weekend, be away from their families and go do this stuff. So, credit to them. I'm glad we're able to get a guy that we're convicted on and we like. So yeah, it's gratifying. I'll probably on the ride home be able to decompress, but it was pretty stressful up there the last 15, 20 minutes trying to get this done. So I'll probably reflect on it later in the day. But I'm fired up about the two players that we were able to get tonight.
Brian,
What's for you?
You're such a noted quarterback guy. You love evaluating and look at these quarterbacks. When were you kind of sold on Jaxson, and what's your scouting report of him? I mean, he wasn't the first one to draft, but he's a guy obviously you guys both love.
Yeah, I'd say, look, we've had conversations all the way up to, this morning, actually, about a variety of things. And, I like the way he plays. I like his competitive fire. I like his accuracy. I like his ability, again, to push the ball down the field. His athletic ability to run with the football. I know the system that they ran down there at Ole Miss is similar to the one we had at Alabama. So there's some carryover on some of these things, but I think this guy's got better every year he's played. He's a leader. He was smart. He has the attributes that we were looking for. So excited to have him. Look forward to getting him in the room, and he's got a lot to learn. It'll be a process here with him, but he's a guy we look forward to working with.
Joe, how would you describe his personality, his temperament, etc.?
Yeah, outgoing. He's an outgoing kid. From our meetings with him, he's personable. We've had multiple dinners with him. We met with him at the Senior Bowl. On the field, he's fiery. I mean, you see him. Like, we're gonna have to probably teach him how to slide. When you watch him, he's trying to run people over. In the Senior Bowl too. It's like, dude, you're in an all-star game. You probably shouldn't be trying to run that linebacker over, and he did that in the game. So he's tough. He's competitive. You see the leadership. Seeing him in games, seeing him live. He's not afraid to get on guys. So. Again, you guys will get to meet him tomorrow, and I'm sure you'll enjoy visiting with him.
What kind of feedback did you get from Eli?
He broke all of his records, but yeah, no, Eli likes him. Big fan. Archie as well. So yeah, the family, they obviously Ole Miss through and through, and follow him and watch a lot of their games. So they were definitely fans of Jaxson.
What games did you see in person of his?
The Egg Bowl.
What stood out in those games?
The Egg Bowl. I went to the Egg Bowl this year, and so we went from Dallas. We stayed over after the Dallas game on Thanksgiving. Went to the Egg Bowl and then the Iron Bowl. So again, it was just we had been studying him, and to me, the accuracy, a lot of stuff that Daboll talked about, accuracy, anticipation. There's athleticism. He's not a statue in the pocket. Again, the ability to throw the deep ball, intermediate throws, short throws. A lot of RPO stuff, but. Again, he's in a really good spot where he can come in and he can sit behind a couple of veteran quarterbacks and learn, and doesn't have to be thrown out there right away. So I think it's from a developmental standpoint and ability to grow. I think it's a perfect situation for a young quarterback.
In an ideal world, would you like him to just sort of sit and intern this year? I mean, you said you're fine with him sort of learning from them and sitting.
Yeah, I'd say all that'll play out. Russ will be our starter. And that's how it'll be once we get started here in the spring. And, look, the process of developing a quarterback is just that. So we're going to do everything we can to develop him and bring him along. And, we have some good quarterbacks in the room relative to playtime, experience, some, medals on the wall, if you will, that have done a great job here these first 4 days. It's really early, phase one, but The two of those guys that we've added have added a lot of value already to the room in terms of leadership and communication. And it's been 4 days, so it's a long way to go with both of those guys. But again, I want to make this about Jaxson, his night. Young player, I think he's got a good skill set, and look forward to developing it with him.
What do you think that Russ and Jameis can show Jaxson? Can they?
Yeah, I think, and that's a fair question, Patty. Look, they're learning our offense right now, so they need to worry about Russ and Jameis. They're great teammates. They've been great teammates these first 4 days to be around them, as are some of the other guys that Joe and the staff brought in. Very happy with the additions that we've made in terms of people, but leadership too. Holland's been fantastic, but look, those guys got a lot to learn. 4 days in, we're developing a system, around them. And, we'll add some of the things that Jaxson does well when he's out there participating. But they need to focus on doing their job the best that they can do. Their leadership has been very good with all the rooms the first 4 days.
Joe, obviously you had a choice of high-profile quarterbacks when you were on the clock. Do you consider Shedeur at all at that point?
Yeah, again, we went through an extensive process, and we moved up for Jaxson. So that's, again, we're fired up to have him. But at the end of the day, when we went through the process and we ranked him, this is how we had him ranked. And Jaxson, we felt the value matched up with where we saw the player.
You said you were taking a swing when you're at the combine. Like, how important, just from where you guys are, to take a swing on what you hope would be your future quarterback?
Yeah, I guess we took 3 since that comment I made.
I don't think Russell's gonna be here in 10 years. Jaxson might be.
Right, but they're swings, right? Yeah. Again, we traded up for him. We're ecstatic to have him. Like he's got a lot of makings of a good quarterback, and there's a long way to go. There's a developmental process that he's gonna have to go through. And again, these offenses are not easy to learn, and the execution has to be at a high level. So again, we took 3 swings since the combine and added three new quarterbacks to the room, and I'm excited about the makeup of the room too.
You said you were meeting up until Monday about what you guys were going to do at quarterback. How challenging were the deliberations about, you do all this work on Shedeur, you do all this work on Jaxson? How did that go? Could you take us behind the scenes on how you came to the decision?
Yeah, I would say it's very similar to how they've always gone, Pat. There's a lot of good communication with, I'd say, a select number of people that have studied the players, that have been on all the trips, that have been in all the meetings, and everybody has opinions. And they're good opinions to have. And we have, again, I can't emphasize, Dennis, Tim, Brandon, Joe, Kafka, Shea, Chad Hall, that kind of group that have worked on this. Everybody had thoughts and opinions and rankings. And then once you sit down with the 8 or 9 people that are talking about it, you generally come up with a consensus of, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. It's a good process. Like Joe said, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. You watch a lot of tape. You have a lot of visits. But it's fun. It's fun to get to meet these guys.
Joe, you've talked about needing the right personality to be the quarterback here in this market. What about Jackson's personality or his makeup makes you think that he can do this job in this setting the way you've laid it out?
Yeah, we try to gauge that as well as we can, and that's a difficult question that none of us really know until you get here and understand what the New York market is and what it's like playing in that market. So again, his resilience, he's tough, he's competitive, takes hits, gets back up, again, he's running people over. Just the makeup of the kid and the way he's wired. He's going to keep getting up and competing, and that's one of the things that we really liked about him.
Yeah, and I'd say there's a process too when he gets here, in terms of developing this player. I don't expect him to know everything right off the bat. It's a hard position to play, a hard position to coach, but he has the traits that we look for and covet in a guy to be able to learn and grow. So his expectations coming in is just to improve every day, soak it up like a sponge, learn from the coaches, learn from the veteran quarterbacks in the room, try to improve every day he can in terms of his understanding of the system. And then once we get on the field, the physical part of it, and that's what we're looking for from him right now, is to grow each and every day with a positive mindset And I think he has the tools physically and mentally to do that.